Catherine Mills looked out the viewport of the lunar conference room. The three massive alien ships hanging in Earth orbit seemed to grow larger every time she glanced at them. They had arrived 18 hours ago without warning. No radio contact. No response to hails. Just silent, threatening presence. "Ms. Mills, they're ready for you." Catherine turned from the window. General Alan Weber stood in the doorway, his face tight with stress. Behind him stood two soldiers in full combat gear, a reminder of how quickly the situation could turn violent. "I still don't understand why me," Catherine said. "I'm just here to finalize the lunar mining agreements. I'm not even senior staff." The general's expression didn't change. "Everyone else is still en route from Earth. The aliens have refused. To wait, you're all we have." Catherine smoothed her navy blue suit jacket. She had packed for meetings with mining executives, not first contact with an alien species. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. "What's the protocol for this situation?" she asked. "There isn't one," Weber said. "The only instruction from Earth Command is don't get us all killed." 5 minutes later, Catherine walked into what had been the colony administrator's office. The room had been cleared of everything except a round table with 5 chairs. 3 were occupied by the strangest beings Catherine had ever seen. They were roughly humanoid, with 4 arms instead of 2. Their skin was a pale bluish gray, and their heads were long and narrow with no visible ears. Large, dark eyes dominated their faces. They wore what appeared to be armor made of interlocking plates. A small device sat in the center of the table. When Catherine entered, it activated with a soft hum. "I am Delegate Zorvax of the Hegemony," said the alien in the center. The translation device rendered its speech in a flat, genderless voice. "These are my associates, Technical Advisor Nex Ula and Security Officer Krev Moore." "I am Catherine Mills representing Earth," she replied, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. "Thank you for meeting with us." "We are not meeting," Zorvax said. "We are informing. The Galactic Hegemony requires resources from this system. Your species will provide them." Catherine felt Weber stiffen beside her. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a demand for surrender. She had 2 degrees, one in international relations and one in theater arts. Her friends had always joked about the strange combination. Now she drew on both. She needed to buy time and gather information. "We are honored by the Hegemony's interest in Earth," she said carefully. "To best fulfill your requirements, I need to understand exactly what resources you seek and in what quantities." Zorvax slid a small crystal across the table. "This contains our initial requirements. Your compliance is expected within 1 planetary rotation." Catherine didn't touch the crystal. Instead, she studied the 3 aliens closely. Her theater training had taught her to read body language, to spot tension in relationships. Even with these alien beings, she could see patterns. Technical Advisor Nex Ula sat slightly hunched, eyes darting between Zorvax and Catherine. Security. Officer Krevmore's upper arms were folded tightly, while the lower ones rested on what Catherine assumed was a weapon. But most interesting was how Nex Ula reacted each time Zorvax spoke. A slight shift away, a subtle tension. Catherine made a decision. She looked directly at Nex Ula and asked, "Would the technical requirements include our manufacturing capabilities or merely raw materials?" The question was innocent enough, but by directing it to the subordinate instead of the leader, she violated what she guessed was their social hierarchy. The reaction was immediate. Zorvax stiffened. Krevmore's hands moved to the weapon, but Nex Ula began to answer before catching himself. "Such details are not your concern," Zorvax cut in sharply. "Of course," Catherine said. "I simply want to ensure we provide exactly what you need. For instance, if you require rare earth elements, our extraction methods may not meet your efficiency standards. Perhaps Technical Advisor Nex Ula could review our processes?" Catherine was gambling, using techniques from her negotiation training. Create division, find the person with different interests, form an alliance. "That will not be necessary," Zorvax said. But Catherine noticed Nex Ula's posture change slightly. "Our goal is efficient compliance," Catherine continued. The sooner we understand your exact needs, the faster we can meet them. Catherine kept her focus on Nex Ula, ignoring Zorvax completely now. A dangerous move, but she sensed opportunity. Our initial analysis of your technology suggests your extraction methods waste 40% of available materials, Nex Ula said suddenly. Zorvax made a sharp gesture. That is not relevant to this discussion. But surely efficiency serves the hegemony's interests, Catherine suggested. If our current methods waste resources you need, wouldn't it be better to improve them first? A tense silence filled the room. Catherine had inadvertently exposed some internal conflict. She pressed her advantage. Perhaps we could establish a joint commission to optimize extraction methods before beginning full resource transfer. This would ensure maximum benefit to the hegemony. Nex Ula turned to Zorvax. The resource optimization directive would apply in this case. For several seconds, the two aliens stared at each other. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Catherine held her breath. Finally, Zorvax turned back to her. Your suggestion has merit. We will establish technical cooperation protocols before implementing resource extraction. Thank you, Catherine said. This will indeed serve both our interests. We will reconvene after one planetary rotation, Zorvax announced. The three aliens rose as one and left the room. When the door closed, General Weber let out a long breath. What just happened? Catherine's hands were shaking now that the tension had broken. I think I found a crack in their unity. The technical advisor seems to have different priorities than the leader. You bought us time, Weber said. Not just time, Catherine replied. I think I found their internal politics. The technical advisor mentioned something called the Resource Optimization Directive. It seemed to override whatever the leader wanted. So they have rules they have to follow, Weber said slowly. Rules we can use. Catherine nodded. Every organization has politics, even alien ones apparently. Weber looked at her with new respect. Earth Command needs to hear about this. You've given us a chance, Ms. Mills. Catherine looked back at the viewport, at the alien ships hanging in orbit. She'd gone, from minor diplomatic staff to humanity's first alien negotiator in less than a day. I just hope it's enough, she said quietly. As she left the room, she didn't realize she had just demonstrated why, years later, the entire galactic hegemony would learn to dread having even a single human at their negotiation tables. 5 years had passed since the Mars incident. Catherine Mills stared out the window of her office in the new Xenodiplomatic Corps building in Washington. Rain streaked down the glass, blurring the view of the memorial that had been built to honor those who died in humanity's first alien conflict. The conflict that she had managed to delay, but not prevent entirely. Her desk was covered with reports from 12 different alien species. In the years following first contact, Earth had established diplomatic relations with many members of the galactic hegemony. Catherine had trained over 50 diplomats in her methods, but she was still considered the best. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Admiral Peter Sandoval from the Pentagon. Catherine Mills, she answered. We need you at the Pentagon, Admiral Sandoval said without greeting. Now, an hour later, Catherine sat in a windowless conference room deep beneath the Pentagon. Admiral Sandoval placed a tablet in front of her. On the screen were 3 separate diplomatic requests from 3 different alien species. Notice anything strange? He asked. Catherine scanned the documents, her eyes widened. They all specifically request human negotiators for upcoming trade deals. Keep reading, Sandoval said. Catherine scrolled through the documents again. They all request anyone but Catherine Mills. She looked up at the Admiral. That's unusual. It's more than unusual, Sandoval said. It's a pattern. Something about your negotiation style terrifies them. Catherine shook her head. I don't do anything special, I just pay attention. Whatever you do, it works. Sandoval slid another tablet toward her. This is your new assignment. The maiden voyage of the UES Pathfinder. Catherine picked up the tablet. I thought the Pathfinder was meant to be an exploration vessel. It is. But its first mission will be to take you to the Tau Ceti system for a multi-species resource-sharing conference. You want me to attend a conference where I'm specifically not wanted? Catherine asked. Yes. Why? Admiral Sandoval's face hardened. Because our intelligence suggests the conference is actually a trap. They want to figure out how humans negotiate. They want to neutralize the advantage you've given us. Catherine stared at him. I'm not a weapon, Admiral. No, you're a diplomat. But in space, those might be the same thing. 2 weeks later, Catherine stood in the docking bay of the lunar space station, watching as her luggage was loaded onto the UES Pathfinder. The ship was beautiful, sleek and silver, the pride of human engineering enhanced by technologies traded from alien allies. Miss C. Mills? I'm Lieutenant John Rivera, Diplomatic Security. Catherine turned to see a tall man in the dark blue uniform of the Earth Space Force. His face was serious, his posture perfect. You're my bodyguard? Catherine asked. I prefer security attachment, Rivera said without smiling. I've been assigned to protect you during the Tau Ceti conference. Catherine studied him. You don't think much of this assignment, do you? Rivera's expression didn't change. My job is to keep you safe, not to have opinions. That wasn't an answer, Catherine said. For the first time, a hint of emotion crossed Rivera's face. Annoyance. If you want honesty, no. I don't think much of babysitting a bureaucrat while my teammates are on the frontier. Catherine nodded. Fair enough, let's get on board. I promise not to be too much trouble. The journey to Tau Ceti would take 3 weeks, even with the new faster-than-light engines. Catherine spent most of her time studying reports on the 12 species that would attend the conference. Rivera kept his distance, professional but cold. That changed in the 3rd week of their journey. Catherine was in the ship's mess hall when the alien engineering consultant, a Praxian named Moktal, entered. Praxians were known for their strict social hierarchies and complicated rules of respect. Catherine greeted Moktal politely. The alien engineer responded with a series of rapid clicks and hisses that the translator rendered as increasingly hostile demands. Rivera, seated at a nearby table, tensed and put his hand near his weapon. Catherine held up her hand, signaling him to wait. She turned to Moktal and made a simple gesture, touching her right hand to her left shoulder, then extending both arms downward with palms facing inward. The alien immediately stopped. Its body posture changed completely. Forgiveness. The translator spoke. I did not realize you were knowledge ranked. My deepest apologies. Catherine smiled. No offense taken. How are the engine modifications proceeding? For the next 10 minutes, Catherine and Moktal discussed technical details about the ship's engines. When the alien left, Rivera approached her table. What just happened? He asked. Catherine shrugged. Praxians have strict rules about who can speak to whom and how. When he came in, he thought I was just another crew member entering his workspace without permission. I showed him the gesture that indicates I've studied Praxian culture. You stopped what looked like an imminent attack with a hand gesture, Rivera said slowly. It wasn't an attack. It was a cultural misunderstanding. Catherine smiled. That's what diplomats do. We prevent fights before they start. After that day, Rivera began to watch Catherine more closely. He noticed how she spent hours studying alien cultural documents, how she practiced gestures and phrases when she thought no one was looking, how she worked to understand not just what aliens said, but why they said it. The night before they reached Tau Ceti, Rivera found Catherine in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Nervous about tomorrow? He asked. Catherine nodded. Admiral Sandoval thinks it's a trap. Do you think he's right? Probably. Catherine turned to face him. But not the kind of trap he imagines. They're not going to attack me physically. That's too obvious. Then what will they do? They'll try to figure out what makes humans different, why our negotiation tactics work so well. She looked back at the stars. The thing is, I don't have any special tactics. I just pay attention to details that others miss. Like with the Praxian engineer, Rivera said. Exactly. Catherine sighed. Everyone thinks I have some secret. The truth is much simpler, but they'll never believe it. Rivera was silent for a moment. I'll be with you tomorrow, whatever happens. Catherine smiled at him. Thank you. I think I'm going to need all the help I can get. As the Pathfinder approached the massive space station orbiting Tau Ceti, Catherine prepared herself. Whatever trap waited for her inside, she would face it the same way she faced every negotiation, by watching, listening, and finding the patterns that others missed. The Tau Ceti Conference Center was massive. Built inside an asteroid, its Great Hall could hold representatives from 50 different species. Today only 12 were present, plus Catherine as the sole human delegate. The walls were lined with translation devices. The air was a careful mix designed to be breathable by all attendees. Catherine sat at her assigned table. Lieutenant Rivera stood behind her, scanning the room constantly. The other delegates were arriving in small groups, their body language telling Catherine more than their formal greetings. Something feels wrong, Rivera said quietly. The Moravian delegation keeps looking at you. Catherine nodded slightly. I noticed. And the conference agenda they sent me this morning is different from what was agreed upon. Before Rivera could respond, a tall, thin alien approached. This was Ambassador Zelkon of the Hegemony, the conference chair. His species, the Vociri, looked almost human except for their grayish skin and two wide eyes. Diplomat Mills, Zelkon said through his translator. We are honored by Earth's participation. The honor is ours, Catherine replied using the formal greeting she had studied. We look forward to productive discussions. Zelkon's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. Indeed. I see you have already received the updated agenda. We begin in 30 minutes. As he walked away, Catherine turned to her tablet. She scanned the agenda again, noting the changes from the version she had prepared for. They've moved the mineral rights discussion to first position, she said to Rivera. That was supposed to be on day 3 after the framework agreements. Is that significant? Rivera asked. Very. Without the framework, there are no established guidelines for the discussion. Catherine continued scrolling. And they've assigned diplomat Zrentol as my translator. Rivera looked across the room at a short, stocky alien with bright, red skin. You don't trust this Zrentol? I've never met him. But the original plan was for me to use the standard translation devices, not a personal translator. Catherine frowned. Something is definitely wrong. When the conference began, Catherine's suspicions were quickly confirmed. As Ambassador Zelkon outlined the proceedings, Zrentol translated for her. But Catherine had studied enough of the common trade language to notice discrepancies. When Zelkon said equal allocation based on need, Zrentol translated it as proportional allocation based on historical claims. When another delegate mentioned renewable resource guidelines, it was translated to Catherine as extraction priority ratings. After 20 minutes of this, Catherine knew she needed to act. She couldn't simply call out the mistranslation. That would create an immediate diplomatic incident with no proof. She leaned forward and deliberately knocked her water glass onto the table. The liquid spread quickly toward her electronic tablet. I apologize, she said loudly, standing up. I need to clean this before it damages our equipment. Please continue without me for a moment. Catherine left the hall, with Rivera following, close behind. Once they were in the corridor, she stopped. I need your help, she said quietly. The translator is deliberately mistranslating key terms. They're trying to trick me into agreeing to terms that would put Earth at a disadvantage. Rivera's expression hardened. What do you need me to do? I need time, and I need to get into Zrentol's quarters. Breaking into an alien diplomat's room could start a war, Rivera warned. So could agreeing to terms that give away Earth's resources, Catherine countered. I'm not going to take anything. I just need to confirm my suspicions. Rivera hesitated, then nodded. I'll help you, but how do we get the time? Catherine smiled. I'm going to make a cultural error. When they returned to the conference hall, Catherine walked directly to the center of the room rather than to her seat. All conversation stopped. Honored representatives, she said clearly. Before we continue, I wish to acknowledge the wisdom of our hosts by performing the traditional human gesture of diplomatic respect. Before anyone could respond, Catherine performed an elaborate bow, then a series of hand gestures she had completely invented. She finished by touching her right hand to her forehead, then extending it palm up toward Ambassador Zelkan. The room was dead silent. Then Zelkan stood up, his face showing confusion. "Diplomat Mills," he said carefully. "I am not familiar with this human tradition." "Oh." Catherine put her hand to her mouth in apparent shock. "I've committed a terrible error. On Earth, this gesture is performed at the beginning of important negotiations. But I've just remembered that in some cultures, similar movements have different meanings." She let her voice trail off in apparent embarrassment. Several delegates began murmuring to each other. "Perhaps it would be best if we adjourned for a few hours," Zelkan suggested, "to allow for cultural clarity to be restored." "I am deeply sorry for any offense," Catherine said, bowing her head. As the delegates filed out, Rivera leaned close to her. "What did those gestures actually mean?" "Absolutely nothing," Catherine whispered. "I made them up, but now we have time." Getting into Zrentol's quarters was surprisingly easy. Rivera disabled the door lock with a device from Earth security forces. Inside, Catherine went straight to the translator's personal console. "Here," she said after a few minutes of searching. "Translation override protocols. He's been given specific instructions on how to mistranslate certain terms." Her fingers moved quickly over the screen. "And there's correspondence between him and delegates from 6 different species." "A conspiracy?" Rivera asked. "Yes. They're working together to limit Earth's expansion." Catherine took images of the evidence with her secure device. "But now I know which delegates are involved and which ones aren't." "What will you do? Expose them?" Catherine shook her head. "Not directly, that would only cause them to unite against us." She smiled slowly. "Instead, I'm going to let them know that I know, without ever saying it directly." When the conference resumed, Catherine requested a different translator, citing technical compatibility issues with Zrentol's equipment. The request was granted. Then, as the mineral rights discussion began, Catherine started inserting subtle phrases into her statements, phrases that directly referenced the secret plans she had discovered, without ever acknowledging them openly. Earth believes in fair resource allocation, unlike systems that might prioritize historical claims over current needs. "We support transparency in all negotiations, as secrecy often leads to unfortunate exposures." Each time she spoke, she watched the faces of the 6 conspiring delegates. Their reactions told her everything. Widened eyes, nervous gestures, whispered consultations. By the end of the day, 2 of the conspirators had approached her privately, offering to break from the others and support Earth's positions. Ambassador Zelkan was the last to confront her. He found her alone in a corridor as the day's sessions ended. "You know," he said simply. Catherine looked at him calmly. "I know many things, Ambassador. Which one concerns you?" "How did you discover our arrangement? So quickly?" "The same way I negotiate so effectively," Catherine replied. "I pay attention to details others miss." Zelkan studied her for a long moment. "Is this why the hegemony fears human diplomats? This attention to detail?" "Perhaps. Or perhaps it's something else entirely." Catherine smiled. "Tomorrow's sessions should be interesting, don't you think?" As she walked away, she knew the real games were just beginning. 1 year after the Tau Ceti conference, Catherine sat in her apartment in Washington, staring at the rain outside her window. Her success at the conference had changed everything. Earth had secured favorable treaties with 14 alien species. Human colonies now existed on 7 different planets. The Xeno-Diplomatic Corps had grown from 50 diplomats to over 300, all trained in what was now called the Mills method. But success had its price. Catherine hadn't slept more than 4 hours at a stretch in months. She traveled constantly between diplomatic hotspots across the galaxy. When she wasn't traveling, she was training new diplomats or writing reports. Her doorbell rang. Catherine checked the security screen and was surprised to see John Rivera standing outside. Since their return from Tau Ceti, he had been promoted to captain and assigned as her permanent security officer, but he should have been off duty today. She opened the door. "John, is something wrong?" Rivera looked serious. "May I come in? This isn't official business." Catherine stepped aside to let him enter. Rivera carried a small electronic device that he placed on her coffee table. "What's that?" she asked. "An analysis I've been working on in my spare time," Rivera said. "I think you need to see it." He activated the device. A holographic display appeared above it, showing data compiled from dozens of diplomatic negotiations over the past year. "I've been tracking patterns in alien responses to human diplomatic techniques," Rivera explained. "At first, they were caught off guard by our methods, but now they're studying us, adapting." The display shifted to show comparison charts. Catherine studied them with growing concern. "They're developing countermeasures," she said quietly. Rivera nodded. "And there's more." He touched the device again and new data appeared. "I discovered references to research programs in several species communications. They're studying human brain function." Catherine stared at the display. "Why would they do that?" "I think they're trying to understand what makes humans different," Rivera said. "What gives us our edge in negotiations?" Before Catherine could respond, her official communication device buzzed. A priority message from Admiral Sandoval, urgent. Report to headquarters immediately. 30 minutes later, Catherine and Rivera sat in Sandoval's office. The Admiral looked like he hadn't slept in days. "We've received a diplomatic request from the Arcturan Collective," Sandoval said without preamble. Catherine raised her eyebrows. The Arcturans were one of the most powerful federations in known space, a collection of 15 advanced species who had shown no interest in Earth until now. "What do they want?" she asked. "They've discovered a wormhole near human space. It could provide access to an entirely new sector of the galaxy." Sandoval's expression was grim. "They've requested immediate negotiations regarding access rights." "That sounds reasonable," Catherine said cautiously. "Why the urgency?" "Because they've specifically requested your presence at the negotiations." Sandoval pushed a tablet across his desk. "And our intelligence suggests it's a trap." Catherine read the message on the tablet. The wording was polite, but firm. The Arcturans would only negotiate with Catherine Mills personally. "What kind of trap?" Rivera asked. "We don't know exactly," Sandoval admitted, "but we've intercepted communications suggesting they plan to study Ms. Mills's negotiation techniques up close. They want to understand her methods. Or neutralize them," Rivera added quietly. Catherine looked between them. "You think this is dangerous?" "We know it is," Sandoval said. "But we can't refuse. This wormhole could be the most significant discovery since faster-than-light travel. If we don't negotiate, we'll be excluded entirely." Catherine thought for a moment. "When do they want me there?" "Their delegation is already en route to the meeting point. You would need to leave within 24 hours. "I'll go," Catherine said. "But I want to take a team with me. 4 junior diplomats from the Corps." Sandoval frowned. "The Arcturans specifically requested you alone." "Then they'll have to compromise," Catherine said firmly. "I won't go without my team." After some back and forth with the Arcturan delegation, a compromise was reached. Catherine could bring 2 junior diplomats as assistants. Rivera would accompany them as security. That evening, Catherine met with the 2 diplomats she had selected, Laura Garcia and Daniel Wong. Both were promising newcomers to the Corps, with backgrounds similar to Catherine's own, a mixture of formal diplomatic training and unexpected skills. Garcia had been a professional poker player before joining the Corps. Wong had studied both neuroscience and linguistics. "I selected you for a reason," Catherine told them in her apartment. "This mission may be dangerous. The Arcturans have specifically requested me because they want to study human negotiation techniques. Or eliminate them," Rivera added from where he stood by the window. Garcia looked nervous. Why us then? Because I need to train my replacements, Catherine said simply, and I think both of you have the potential to surpass me. For the next 12 hours, Catherine worked intensively with Garcia and Wong. She shared everything she had learned about alien psychology, about reading micro-expressions and body language across species. She taught them about finding inconsistencies. In translation, about spotting political divisions within alien delegations. But most importantly, she shared her theory about what really made humans different. It's not our unpredictability or our cleverness, she explained. Those are just side effects. What makes us different is our capacity for empathy across species boundaries. Wong looked skeptical. Empathy, really? Think about it, Catherine said. Most species evolved to understand the emotions and intentions of their own kind. But humans evolved as social predators, who also had to understand their prey. We developed an unprecedented ability to model the minds of others. Even minds, very different from our own. Garcia nodded slowly. So when you negotiate, you're actually feeling what they feel? Not exactly. But I can intuitively model their emotional states, their motivations, their fears, even when they're completely alien to me. Catherine looked at each of them intently. That's what I need you to practice. Don't just analyze them logically. Try to feel your way into their minds. As the UES Pathfinder prepared for departure the next morning, Catherine stood on the observation deck looking out at Earth. Rivera found her there. You're worried, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Catherine admitted. The Arcturans aren't, like the other species we've dealt with. They're older, more advanced. If they've set a trap for me, we'll be ready, Rivera assured her. Catherine turned to him. I've been studying what we know about the Arcturans, their psychology, their history, and I keep coming back to one question. Why do they fear human negotiators so much? What do they see in us that frightens them? Maybe you'll get to ask them, Rivera said. Maybe. Catherine looked back at Earth, growing smaller as the ship moved away. Or maybe I already know the answer, and that's what really scares me. As the Pathfinder engaged its faster-than-light drive, Catherine prepared herself for what might be her most challenging and dangerous negotiation yet. The Arcturan space station was ancient, a massive structure built at the edge of the Tau Ceti system, thousands of years before humans had even developed writing. As the UES Pathfinder docked at the station, Catherine stood at the viewport with Rivera, Garcia, and Wong beside her. Remember what we discussed, Catherine said quietly. They will test us in ways we cannot predict. Stay alert. The reception area was designed to unsettle humans. The lighting was slightly too blue, making human skin look sickly. The ceiling was uncomfortably low for human height but too high for comfort. The temperature fluctuated subtly, never quite comfortable. The air contained trace elements that were not harmful, but created a faint sense of unease. 5 Arcturan representatives waited for them. Unlike most alien species humans had encountered, the Arcturans did not all look alike. The 5 beings before them represented 5 different species from the collective, each evolved on a different world. Their only commonality was an emblem they all wore, a silver spiral on black. Catherine Mills, said the tallest of the Arcturans, a slender being with 4 eyes arranged vertically on its face. I am Prime Delegate Thorin. Welcome to Arcturan space. Catherine performed the formal greeting she had practiced. We are honored by your hospitality, Prime Delegate. May our discussions benefit all. Thorin's upper eyes blinked slowly. Indeed. Your quarters have been prepared according to human biological requirements. We will begin negotiations tomorrow after you have rested. The quarters were luxurious, but strange. Like the reception area, everything was slightly wrong. Beds too firm, chairs at odd angles, lighting that cast double shadows. After a thorough security sweep, Rivera confirmed what they all suspected. The rooms are designed to disrupt human thought patterns. The environmental controls are releasing mild hallucinogens. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to affect judgment. Over time, Catherine nodded. and the translation devices they provided are programmed to subtly alter emotional content. She had already discovered this by comparing them to her own equipment. "What do we do?" Garcia asked. "We adapt," Catherine said simply. "We use their psychological warfare against them. They expect us to resist these effects, to waste energy fighting them. Instead, we'll appear affected while gathering information." Wong looked skeptical. "Pretend to be manipulated while actually manipulating them?" "Exactly," Catherine smiled. "It's what humans do best." The next day, Catherine entered the negotiation chamber alone. Her team watched from an observation room. The chamber was circular, with the Arcturan delegates arranged around one side of a crescent-shaped table. Catherine sat alone on the other side. "Before we begin," Thorin said, "we wish to understand human negotiation methods better. Your species has developed an unusual reputation." "We are an unusual species," Catherine replied calmly. "But our methods are simple. We seek understanding before agreement." "All species seek understanding," said another delegate, a squat being with iridescent scales. "Perhaps," Catherine said. "But humans seek to understand the being across the table, not just the terms of negotiation." The negotiations began with discussions about the wormhole. The Arcturans presented terms that would give Earth limited access to the new sector, with heavy restrictions. Catherine listened, asked questions, but made few counteroffers. She was gathering information, watching patterns of interaction between the Arcturan delegates. By the third day, Catherine had identified weaknesses in the Arcturan position. The 5 species represented had different priorities. The environmental manipulations in her quarters had increased, but Catherine had trained herself to function despite them. On the 4th day, Prime Delegate Thorin requested a private meeting with Catherine. They met in a small chamber adjacent to the main negotiation room. "You are not what I expected," Thorin said without preamble. "What did you expect?" Catherine asked. "The reports described humans as unpredictable, aggressive negotiators. Yet you have been patient, measured." "Those reports were based on observations of humans under threat," Catherine replied. "We adapt our approach to the situation." Thorin's 4 eyes focused on her intently. "There is something more. Something we have not identified." The alien leaned forward. "What gives humans their advantage in negotiations?" Catherine considered, her response carefully. This was the real purpose of the meeting, to discover humanity's secret. She decided to tell the truth. "Empathy," she said simply. "All intelligent species understand the concept of empathy," Thorin said dismissively. "Yes, but humans are the only known species capable of true cross-species empathy," Catherine explained. "We can intuitively model the emotional states and motivations of minds completely unlike our own." Thorin was silent for a long moment. "You claim to understand how I feel? How I think?" "Not perfectly," Catherine said, "but better than you might expect. For example, I sense you're conflicted about these negotiations. Part of you wants to restrict human expansion into the new sector, but another part is curious about what humans might discover there that your people have missed." The alien's upper eyes widened slightly, a sign of surprise that Catherine had learned to recognize. "How could you know this?" Thorin asked. "Because I've been paying attention to you, not just to what you say." Catherine leaned forward. "While your people have been studying my negotiation techniques, I've been studying you." In the final negotiation session, Catherine made a bold demonstration. Standing before the assembled delegates, she described with unsettling accuracy the internal political pressures facing each delegation. She outlined conflicts between the 5 Arcturan species that had never been openly discussed. She identified fears and hopes that had never been expressed. When she finished, the chamber was silent. "This is why you fear human negotiators," Catherine said into the silence. "Not because we're clever or unpredictable, but because we can see into you in ways you cannot see into each other, or even into yourselves." Then Catherine made her offer. Earth would share its techniques for developing cross-species empathy. Humans would train Arcturan diplomats in their methods. In exchange, Earth would receive equal access to the wormhole and the new sector beyond. The offer created exactly the division Catherine had anticipated. 2 of the 5 Arcturan species saw the value in learning human methods. The others saw only threat. As they argued among themselves, Catherine watched calmly. By the time the Pathfinder left the Arcturan station a week later, Earth had secured not just wormhole access, but recognition as a diplomatic power. And Catherine had negotiated something unprecedented. A provision that at least one human must be present at every major diplomatic negotiation between member species of the Arcturan collective. Not as a participant, she explained to Rivera as they watched the station recede into the distance, but as a witness and mediator. You've made us essential to their diplomatic process, Rivera said, impressed. Catherine nodded. That's the ultimate defense. They started by fearing us, now they need us. 6 months later, Catherine stood before a class of new recruits to the Xeno-Diplomatic Corps. The training facility on Mars could accommodate hundreds of students, but she had selected just 20 for this special program. You're here to learn what we now call xenoempathic diplomacy, she told them. The ability to truly understand minds unlike our own, the greatest skill humanity brings to the galactic community. As she looked at their eager faces, Catherine thought about how far humanity had come since that first contact 5 years ago. From a species fighting for survival to one that was now essential to interstellar diplomacy. The Empire dreads the human at the negotiation table, she told her students. Not because of what we might take from them, but because of what we can see in them that they cannot see in themselves.